and a Civil War, written by David Dwyer. The end of the war. The end had come. It was early spring 1865, and General Robert E. Lee realized that his exhausted Confederate army could do no more. Although Lee said that he would rather die 1,000 deaths than surrender, he now saw no choice. The South Coast has been crushed. On April 9th, Lee put on fresh uniform. He rode warily on his horse to meet U.S. General Ulysses S. Grant's private home in the town of Appomattox, Courthouse, Virginia. He arrived at the house and sat down to wait. Half an hour later, Grant made his appearance, clad in an old muddy uniform. The two generals engaged in a friendly conversation. Then they got down to the business of ending the war. Slavery and Union. In the decades leading up to Civil War, the North and South were already divided. One important difference was slavery. The North was a region of growing industry and small farms, with large-scale agriculture playing a large support in the economy. Although slavery had existed in the North, all northern states had outlawed the practice by 1804. The South was a much different world. Its economy built on cotton. Southern plantations owners had chosen to use labor of enslaved 1800s. Nearly 4 million black people were enslaved in the southern states. They were forced to do many jobs but mostly live and work on cotton plantations. Waging total war. In the first 2 years of the war, little went well for the Union. President Lincoln's generals failed him one after another. Still, a Union victory in 1862 made it possible for Lincoln to issue the Emancipation Proclamation, which granted freedom to slaves in the Confederacy. When the war began, Lincoln's main goal has been to save the Union. Now he thinks about it and how to end slavery once and for all. Although the North felt it just was, Union losses were horrible. In one battle, Union survivors recorded, men felt like leaves in autumn. It seemed miraculous that any of us escaped at all. The cries of the wounded, another man said, were weird, unearthly, terrible to hear and bear. As the war dragged on, Northern feeling against the fighting group, unlike the Republicans, Democrats called for an end to battle and negotiate end to the war. The 1864 election would determine the whole direction of the war, and Lincoln believed he would lose. Waging total war. In the first 2 years of the war, little went well for the Union. President Lincoln's generals failed him one after another. Still, a Union victory in 1896 made it possible for Lincoln to issue the Emancipation Proclamation, which granted the war begin. Lincoln's main goal had to be to save the Union. Now he began to think about how to end slavery once and for all. Although the North felt its cause was just, Union losses were horrible. In one battle, a Union survivor recalled that men felt like leaves in the. I read this already. Yeah. Instead, Lincoln won. Re-election gave him the strength to continue the war in order to reunite the country and end slavery. In January 1865, Congress passed the 13th Amendment, an addition to the Constitution that ended slavery crime. Lincoln also finally had the general he needed. Ulysses S. Grant and William Tecumseh Sherman, Those two commanders were professional and effective. They sought to destroy the Confederacy and end the war as quickly as possible. Sherman's campaign took him through the Deep South. In the late 1864, after burning much of Atlanta, his men marched across the state of Georgia. They tore the rail lines, destroyed bridges, and set fire to many homes. Meanwhile, to the north, Grant has been waging a grim and steady campaign against Lee. At Cold Harbor, Virginia, Grant ordered an attack on Confederate lines that caused some 7,000 Union casualties. In 20 minutes, one Union soldier later said, "This wasn't war but murder." Such bloodshed earned Grant the nickname the Butcher. Still, Grant was wearing down Lee's army. By early 1865, he had Lee stopped it in trenches outside of Petersburg, Virginia. The South surrendered before dawn on April 3rd. Lee fled Petersburg. He knew that staying out there any longer would doom his army, but Union forces dodged pressured his retreat. Grant was determined that Lee would not escape. On April 6th, Grant's army killed or wounded about 8,000 Confederate soldiers. Lee saw that a surrender was only a reasonable option. After 4 bloody years, the Civil War was coming to an end. Grant offered generous terms for the South surrender. He allowed all Confederate soldiers to return home. He also agreed that Lee's troops could keep their horses and mules because Lee's men were nearly starving. Grant ordered food from thousands. Other Confederate forces in the South had not given up yet the fight. They also surrendered. On April 2nd, Confederate President Jefferson Davis fled the Confederate capital Richmond. On May 10th, he was captured and would spend 2 years in prison. The Civil War was over. The killing of President Lincoln. The United States remained united, yet the North's joy over its victory in the war soon turned back to mourning. On April 14, 1865, John Wilkes Booth gained entrance to the Lincoln's private box at Ford Theater in Washington, D.C. As the president and his wife Mary sat and watching a play, Booth fired a single shot into Lincoln's head and then jumped down to the stage. The unconscious Lincoln was taken across the street to a private house. He died early the morning. Booth was an actor who was fiercely opposed to both Lincoln and abolition. He was part of a group that sought revenge for defeat of the Confederacy. They planned to kill not only Lincoln but also Vice President Andrew Johnson and Secretary of William Seward. As it turned out, only Lincoln was killed, although Seward received serious knife wounds. Union troops tracked Booth and another man they formed in Virginia. Booth was shot to death. Others in his group were later tried to further crimes. 4 men were found guilty and hanged. Lincoln's body was sent on a funeral train back to his home state of Illinois. Although gone, Lincoln lived long enough to achieve his main goal, saving the Union and ending slavery. Legacy of the Civil War. The end of the Civil War also began the next chapter in history of the United States. By December 6, 1865, the 13th Amendment, which ended slavery, had been ratified by enough states to become law. Within the next 5 years, two more amendments, the 14th and 15th, were passed, giving formerly enslaved people civil rights and voting rights. Beyond ending slavery, Civil War established the principle that the United States is an invisible nation. States, whatever feeling about the country, do not have the right to secede from the Union. Since the Civil War, the nation has other times of the Great Strain. Americans continue to be divided today on many issues and many ways. Yet we remain one nation, the United States of America.